Love to see him.
Thanks.
Sir.
Yeah, you mentioned how good it is that Apple controls the hardware, or at the very least that Apple controls something like Chirp, which is the hardware spec. And indeed, I hear really good things about it. I hear that Chirp has bus speeds. I hear they've really improved the I/O subsystem. And then I came to the conference. I actually talked to some of the people working on it. And on the cloning side, I hear that Chirp is done. They've already finished the hardware. They're ready to go into production. I've heard some people here at Apple working on the software side, and they said, well, that software side is actually done too. It's all waiting on some weird negotiations going on with the cloners. And then there's a rumor going on that the reason that's caught up in negotiations is because Apple's concerned that performance of Chirp is good enough that it's going to cannibalize some of their own markets. And it seems to me there's a conflict of interest here between Apple's own hardware and some of the cloning hardware where...
Yeah, I don't believe that's true at all. I mean, the person running hardware at Apple, I have known for a decade. His name is John Rubinstein. I trust him with my life. He's the best hardware leader I have ever seen in my life. He's really, really, really good. He comes from very high-performance systems. And what his expertise is putting a lot of those high-performance systems in silicon so they can be really cheap. Right? He's really good at that. He's really good at leading teams of very talented engineering managers and engineers. And what he wants to do is build some kick-ass stuff. Because the Mac hardware is not at the top of the food chain, let's just say. And we want to get it there. And we are going to get it there. So if there was something ready to go that was really good, I promise you, John would be shipping it yesterday. Okay? And in terms of the clone makers, I know that what John is pushing for very strongly, which I support 100%, is to tell the clone makers they can build their own hardware. That's the easiest thing to do. Don't be limited by what Apple does or does not release. Build your own. There's a billion people out there building hardware. Look at the PC clone business. They all build their own hardware. They could have people build it for them. They could have people design it for them. So release them out of the bondage that they can only use Apple hardware. And they can do whatever they want. Matter of fact, they could build Rhapsody boxes with Intel processors in them if they wanted to. They could do whatever they wanted to. And that's where I'm hoping Apple goes.
So you don't see any conflict of interest there between Apple's hardware, where a lot of Apple makes its money, and the
If I can tell you, no, I don't. All I can tell you is I know this 100% to be true. If Apple had a hot product, it would be shipping it tomorrow. Okay? And they have shipped a few hot products recently. And if there were any more before when the next batch is coming out, they'd be shipping them instantly. Apple's about having hot products. And so nothing is being held up that's any good. I guarantee you that. Yes?
Okay, so Apple's turned it around. We've got Gil, we've got you, we've got G3, we've got Rhapsody, we've got Newton 2000. Great. Now when are we going to see some real kick-ass TV commercials to change the mindset?
Yeah. Well, let me go through your preamble a little bit. I personally don't think Apple's completely turned it around. I mean, I think it's turning it around. And I wouldn't put it in the past tense. I think it's like this right now. And I feel very confident in the team that's managing the pieces of Apple right now. I think they're doing a really good job. And the strategy, I think, is pretty doggone good. So I feel very good about that, and I think it's turning around, and I think you're going to see more and more signs of that. I'll give you my own opinion on this, because marketing is a subjective thing. It's not a science. There's a lot of art to it. And my personal belief is that the medium really does communicate a lot about the message. In some cases, the medium overrides the message. And I personally believe that Apple should not be on television at all this year. It's the wrong place to be for Apple. Because what it means, just a sec, what it means is that Apple is trying to spend a lot of money to convince you that everything's okay. And what I think Apple ought to be doing is taking a fraction of that money and putting it in print. And I don't mean 8-page Wall Street Journal ads. Because to me, again, an 8-page Wall Street Journal ad is saying, I'm going to spend my wad to show you that I'm back. And what Apple needs now is not spending $1 million to tell people it's back. It needs for the journalists to be saying Apple's back on page 1. Because if on page 7 to 14, Apple's spending $1 million saying we're back, but on page 1, a journalist writes an article saying they're in the tank, who are you going to believe? As a matter of fact, that $1 million on page 7 to 14 is going to reinforce the message on page 1. They got to buy me.
Meanwhile, it's the TV commercials that are influencing the salesmen at Circuit City and Fry's, and they're the ones who are bad-mouthing us.
You know, I don't buy it at all. I don't buy it at all. I don't think that's true. I think that more than anything right now, PR is influencing purchase consideration in this category, not advertising. So I'm in the minority, but I have had a certain degree of experience in this matter. And I believe strongly that, that Apple really needs to talk about its great products and its great customers and its great applications. And the best way for it to do that is in print, in a very straightforward way. And I also believe very strongly that the high order bit of any marketing campaign is profitability. We spend a boatload of money in any quarter marketing ourselves, and if we lose money in that quarter, any positive momentum that we've created is completely erased. So profitability to me is the high order bit of marketing for Apple at this point in time. And I think, you know, we're approaching that, and I think we should just use every ounce of financial resources to get there, and I think that will be very strong and very loudly heard. I think we should focus on PR, and I think we should focus on print advertising and stay out of television this year. But I don't make these decisions. So that's my recommendation that I've given Apple.
Use your clout to make sure that when the TV commercials are done and you have more money, they're good ones.
Thanks. Yes.
Mr. Jobs, you're a bright and influential man.
Here it comes.
It's sad and clear that on several counts you've discussed, you don't know what you're talking about. I would like, for example, for you to express in clear terms how, say, Java, in any of its incarnations, addresses the ideas embodied in OpenDoc. And when you're finished with that, perhaps you could tell us what you personally have been doing for the last 7 years.
You know, you can please some of the people some of the time, but one of the hardest things when you're trying to affect change is that people like this gentleman are right in some areas. I'm sure that there are some things OpenDoc does, probably even more that I'm not familiar with, that nothing else out there does. And I'm sure that you can make some demos, maybe a small commercial app that demonstrates those things. The hardest thing is, how does that fit in to a cohesive, larger vision that's going to allow you to sell $8 billion, $10 billion of product a year? And one of the things I've always found is that you've got to start with the customer experience and work backwards to the technology. You can't start with the technology and try to figure out where you're going to try to sell it. And I've made this mistake probably more than anybody else in this room. And I've got the scar tissue to prove it. And I know that it's the case. And as we have tried to come up with a strategy and a vision for Apple, it started with what incredible benefits can we give to the customer? Where can we take the customer? Not starting with, let's sit down with the engineers and figure out what awesome technology we have, and then how are we going to market that. And I think that's the right path to take. I remember with the laser writer, we built the world's first small laser printers, you know, and there was awesome technology in that box. We had the first Canon laser printing, cheap laser printing engine in the world, in the United States here at Apple. We had a very wonderful printer controller that we designed. We had Adobe's PostScript software in there. We had Apple Talk in there. Just awesome technology in the box. And I remember seeing the first printout come out of it and just picking it up and looking at it and thinking, you know, we can sell this. Because you don't have to know anything about what's in that box. All we have to do is hold this up and go, do you want this? And if you can remember back to 1984, before laser printers, it was pretty startling to see that. People went, whoa, yes. And that's where Apple's got to get back to. And, you know, I'm sorry that OpenDoc's a casualty along the way, and I readily admit there are many things in life that I don't have the faintest idea what I'm talking about. So I apologize for that too. But there's a whole lot of people working super, super hard right now at Apple. You know, Avi, John, Garino, Fred. I mean, the whole team is working, burning the midnight oil, trying to, and people, you know, hundreds of people below them, to execute on some of these things, and they're doing their best. And I think that what we need to do, and some mistakes will be made, by the way. Some mistakes will be made along the way. That's good, because at least some decisions are being made along the way. And we'll find the mistakes, we'll fix them. And I think what we need to do is support that team going through this very important stage as they work their butts off. They're all getting calls, being offered 3 times as much money to go do this, do that, the valley's hot, and none of them are leaving. And I think we need to support them and see them through this and write some damn good applications to support Apple out in the market. That's my own point of view. Mistakes will be made. Some people will be pissed off. Some people will not know what they're talking about. But I think it is so much better than where things were not very long ago. And I think we're going to get there. So I think we've got time for just a few more questions. So why don't we take 3 more questions, and we'll get on our way today. In the back.
Yes. I work for a large corporation that is seriously reconsidering its development targeting for the Macintosh. Mm-hmm. They sent me out here on last year's WWDC, and I came back with, you know, a lot of new technology, and I really impressed them with, wow, we got Gil on board now, we've got a next generation OS we're moving forward with, and I've lost a bit of credibility with that. And now, on Monday morning, I got to go back to them and say, we really mean it this time. We've got great new technology, and I really do believe in the new strategy. If you were me, if you were a software developer like me who works for a Fortune 500 corporation, what would you tell my people to convince them to stay with the Macintosh?
Mm-hmm. Good question. Let me ask you a few questions. Do you use primarily off